Hi, I'm Pat Barnard, Group Managing Editor for TMCnet, here at IT Expo West, live with David Byrd, Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Broadvox. Hi, David, and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Good. So Broadvox has been seeing some pretty steady growth recently. I was just wondering if maybe you could sort of speak to, what's going on and what's sort of driving the growth of the company right now.
Well, I mean, the growth of the company is still coming from our retail space.
Uh-huh.
Our wholesale business is doing well,
Right.
but the growth that really is taking us into the future is our retail SIP trunking products.
Retail SIP trunking. Okay, great. And obviously we know a lot about the benefits of SIP trunking
Right.
for organizations, and we're starting to see stronger and stronger penetration of SIP trunking, in the enterprise space. What would you say are right now the primary factors that are driving adoption of SIP trunking? I mean, obviously you could say cost, but then there's also UC and the whole collaboration and employee productivity benefits as well. Which of those do you sort of see as being sort of the stronger play when you listen to people for the rationale for making the move to SIP trunking?
Well, in 2010, which is where we are, businesses are still making the decision to transition to SIP for cost.
Right.
Number one, it's still cost. It's about infrastructure, it's delaying CapEx, it's about saving money.
Right.
Now, that is not to say that we are beginning to see more of the times when people want to go ahead and have SIP trunks for supporting collaborative applications, unified communications, and so forth. And so I think what you're now seeing is that an IT department makes their initial decision, we're going to go out and save money, and then they're saying, but we have to pick the right platform, service provider, et cetera, because it has to position us for these future applications.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously that's got to be important. In terms of the providers that are out there, I mean, obviously interoperability is a really key factor. And obviously, when you decide to make this move, you got to make sure that it interoperates with whatever other existing systems that you have, right? I mean, that's part of it as well. And then you also have to have sort of a roadmap for the future, and that also factors into the decision pretty heavily as well, right?
Right. So in terms of interoperability, I mean, Broadvox and quite frankly most of the service providers now have a fair number of platforms with which they operate. Now at Broadvox we're fairly proud. We have an interoperability team that conducts interops on a full-time basis. We've now got over 40 platforms that are certified with our product. We're continuing that. The newest company that we just signed agreements to begin interoperability testing with at Mitel, which is a really serious player in the space.
Right.
And as far as life cycles, I mean, I'm not sure how interoperability plays so much with life cycles as far as it's probably more important to consider who your base PBX platforms are, the hybrid environments that you're going to be creating. Small businesses, not so much a worry. Enterprises usually have a mismatch of different IP PBXs that they're working with. But it's not something that, generally speaking, Broadvox gets involved in.
Okay, all right. And then what would you say is probably the second biggest factor driving adoption of SIP trunking right now?
The second biggest factor?
Beyond cost.
Beyond cost.
Yeah.
Well, cost, save money, it's a biggie.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned the UC and the employee productivity.
I'm thinking about it. I think that people right now, for the most part, on the enterprise space, you have a more sophisticated buyer. So in the enterprise space, I would say that the next generation of applications become real key. Because an IT director is sitting there saying, how do I implement UC fully? How do I take advantage of telepresence? How do I take advantage of HD voice? Now, how am I going to do these things in our network between our users? And the only way to do that is with IP.
Right. What about security concerns? Obviously, that's another consideration as well, and people go into this with some trepidation for that reason. What has Broadvox been doing, and how do they play? What's the role that you guys play in terms of helping provide some assurance in that area?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the number one security concern isn't at the service provider layer. It's really inside the building.
Right.
So what we do is we talk to companies like Sapura, quite frankly, Ingate and others, about offering better security inside the building. Because once that packet actually makes it to us, you're not going to find it inside our network.
Right.
The idea of, this is one of the issues that the government has, that you can eavesdrop on an IP phone call inside of the network, not possible.
Right.
So we're not worried about the security there, but we do talk about security at the endpoints. That you've properly protected yourself with good firewalls, that you've got good authentication and security measures inside of the company, that those are the things that will keep your communication secure.
Okay, great. I think that's a good point too, definitely. Now you guys are exhibiting here?
We are.
And then you're also speaking as well, is that right?
I am.
Okay. Tell me about the sessions that you're speaking at.
Well, we're talking about two things here. One is our new hosted product, GoVBX.
Okay.
And then we're also talking in general about what's happening with the industry and continuing to let people know that Broadvox is a continuing and growing presence in the IP space. But most of the conversations around GoVBX.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about this new offering.
GoVBX is an industry first. First of all, I should say, it's been built such that we can support a small business, medium-sized business, or an enterprise.
Okay.
And we do so by using off-the-shelf components. We also have a bit of customization at the enterprise level so that we can deliver certain kinds of features that enterprise customers are demanding in the virtual PBX space.
Right.
All right. But the big difference, the truly big difference, is our pricing model.
Okay.
So instead of having a price that is supposed to cover the extension across the business, so I say $29.95.
Right.
And so you've got 10 extensions that you require across, say, 8 people, or you've got 20 extensions you require across, say, 15 people. You charge this $29.95 for the 20 extensions. And what did you just pay for? You bought communications for each one of your employees. You also bought communications for that conference phone that gets used once or twice a week.
Right.
The phone in the kitchen that doesn't get used at all.
Right.
And maybe there's another phone in the back that you don't even know where it's located.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
We're saying, no, don't do that. We have a flat fee of $10 per extension.
Okay.
And then we sit down with you and evaluate your actual communications requirements. We then sell you a SIP trunk that is specifically sized to your business. And what this means is, instead of paying $29.95, you're going to be paying as little as $15.95 or maybe just a touch more.
Wow.
But the point is, we've changed the whole pricing paradigm with regard to this hosted VoIP or PBX offering.
Wow, that's great. Okay, good. And you mentioned that you're also going to be touching on some market trends. Can you fill us in on a little bit? Give us a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be talking about?
Well, right now we believe the biggest trend has been for virtual PBXs to no longer be perceived as just small business solutions. You know, if you think about it, several competitors have sold only in the 5 to 250 seat space.
Right.
And what's really happening is we're finding that there are opportunities out there for 500, 1,000, and 2,000 extensions.
Right.
As enterprises want to bring in some of their other corporate offices, branch offices, they're seeing a hybrid now of both premise and hosted. So the old debate of premise versus hosted is starting to go away at the enterprise space.
Okay, great. What are some of the factors that you think are pushing enterprises out into the cloud in terms of telephony?
Speed.
Speed?
Speed to deploy new applications. So you were talking about unified communications, collaboration, etc.
Right.
The speed of doing it when I don't have to go out and buy another PBX, install it, run new lines, etc.
Right.
I can go to a company like Broadvox, get the service installed, have that SIP trunk tie back into my corporate PBX, tie everything into one system. That speed is much, much faster than trying to do a roll-your-own type of deployment.
Especially if you've got multiple locations, right?
Especially.
Right. Okay. All right, great. Okay. We've been talking to David Byrd, Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Broadvox. David, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.